Hello everyone and welcome to the channel. When the most industrial country in Europe shuts down working nuclear plants, then burns more gas and coal and calls it green leadership, you understand this is not about physics, it's about politics, fear, and very expensive illusions. Germany without atom is not a philosophy seminar. It is your electricity bill, your factory's margin, and in half of Europe it is the difference between we still produce and we only import. This is the part no politician wants to explain on TV. Let's start from the ground level. Physically, Germany removed roughly 4+ gigawatts of nuclear capacity in April 2023 when it shut its last 3 reactors. These units were old, but they were stable baseload with almost zero CO2 and very predictable costs. In exchange, the country now leans on a cocktail of renewables, gas, and coal, with the grid trying to juggle wind, sun, and fossil backup in real time. In 2023, renewables passed the symbolic 50% mark in power generation, reaching around 56%. Coal, including lignite, still sat at roughly a quarter of the mix, and gas filled a good part of the rest. Emissions dropped to about 673 million tons of CO2, the lowest in decades, but mostly because energy-intensive industry cut output or shut down, not because the system suddenly became clean and efficient. Here is where the story stops making sense. Politicians sell this as a triumph of climate policy, while a big chunk of the success is actually deindustrialization and recession. Less steel, less chemicals, less glass, fewer shifts in factories. Of course, emissions fall when you switch off production. Look at the money side. When you remove firm, low marginal cost nuclear from a system already stressed by the loss of cheap Russian pipeline gas, you don't get stability, you get volatility. Germany has been bouncing between periods of very high wholesale prices and short phases of relief. Industry can't plan capex on maybe this winter will be windy and mild. And if you remember only one thing from this video, let it be this. Price volatility is a tax on anyone who cannot pass on costs. That means small and medium enterprises, local industry, and households. Now, who are the players and what do they actually want? Berlin's political class wants to prove that a large industrial economy can run on renewables plus flexible gas and a bit of coal for a transition. Brussels wants a flagship success inside the EU to justify its own green and taxonomy frameworks. Washington wants a big, loyal gas customer that buys LNG instead of pipeline molecules from the east. Russia, cut off from its main pipeline market, pivots to Asia, but still benefits from any instability that weakens European industry and cohesion. China, of course, smiles politely and sells the solar panels, batteries, inverters, and a growing share of industrial products to a Europe that is busy dismantling its own cost base. This is the part no politician in Berlin wants to spell out. If your energy system becomes structurally more expensive and unstable than your competitors, you are not changing the model. You are exporting your heavy industry and importing the same goods with more CO2 embedded in them. You don't save the planet. You just move the smokestacks to someone else's horizon. From inside the EU, and especially from the Baltic region, Germany's choice is not some remote ideological story. It is a systemic anchor. When Germany needs more gas to stabilize its power system, it sucks capacity from the same regional market everyone else uses. When German coal and gas plants ramp up because there is no wind, power prices across Central Europe jump. When German demand collapses, Eastern European exporters lose orders and jobs. If you're in Germany or Poland, I'm curious how this looks from your side, as a reasonable transition or as a very expensive identity project. Supporters of the nuclear exit like to repeat that renewables are cheap and getting cheaper. Partly true on paper if you ignore the grid, backup, and storage. But wind turbines don't spin in still air, and solar panels don't help at 1900 in December in Northern Europe. Without nuclear, the firm layer under the wind and sun is gas, coal, and imports. So instead of one political dependency on Russian pipelines, Germany now has a basket of dependencies: LNG chains, Norwegian production, interconnectors, and the goodwill of neighbors to tolerate cross-border flows and price spikes. Here is where the story stops making sense for the second time. Officially, Europe wants strategic autonomy. In practice, it dismantled its own nuclear backbone in its largest economy, increased reliance on imported LNG priced on global markets, and now prays that Asian demand does not spike at the wrong moment. That is not strategy. That is hoping the dice keep falling in your favor. For ordinary people, the impact is boring and brutal at the same time. Boring because it comes as a higher standing charge on your bill, a temporary surcharge that never quite disappears, or a notice from your landlord that heating and power costs are rising again. Brutal because for many small manufacturers in Germany, Austria, Czech Republic, the Baltics, the difference between 50 and 150 euros per megawatt hour is the difference between hiring and firing. Margins in a lot of traditional industry were thin even before 2020. Add energy volatility, add higher financing costs from central banks fighting inflation, and you get what we're already seeing: production moving, investment delayed, and some plants simply closing. If you're in Southern Europe, does this match your reality or Brussels' fantasy? Many southern countries looked at Germany for years as the model: export-driven, disciplined, efficient. Now the model is flirting with stagnation, and its energy choices are one of the core reasons. When the biggest engine in the EU starts misfiring, everyone in the same car feels it, even those who never voted for any of this. On top of that, there is a demographic clock ticking in the background. An aging population means fewer workers and higher social costs. To sustain pensions and health care, you need strong, competitive industry and services. Instead, Germany is trying to run a high-cost energy system, rebuild its grid, subsidize green projects, support Ukraine, and still finance its welfare state. You don't need a PhD in economics to see that the budget math begins to creak. Let's summarize without emotion. Germany shut down functioning nuclear plants before it had a robust, affordable replacement. It filled the gap with a mix of renewables, gas, and coal that increased volatility and external dependence. Emissions went down mainly because production went down, not because the system suddenly became efficient. And by doing all this as the core economy of the EU, Germany exported its instability to the entire European energy and industrial system. Thank you for watching. Take care of yourselves and your loved ones, and try to remember, slogans don't power grids, systems do.